Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I will be discussing how to treat various different pests. I hope you enjoy. One of the most common pests that you could possibly deal with in your plant collection is mealybugs. Mealybugs can be described as a tiny little white bugs that leave a powdery residue on the plant as they move around. They're pretty much just tropical aphids, and they're really easy to treat. All you gotta do is spray up to at least 70% isopropyl alcohol. You just spray that onto your plant where you see the mealybugs, or just all over your plant is probably better, just to get full coverage. But before that, you'll just want to go into a Q-tip and kill any bugs with it that you see. You'll know you'll kill the bugs because they will turn brown and probably fall off the plant. This treatment will probably take a couple of weeks as the mealybugs finish their life cycle of hatching, pupating, and becoming an adult. So you'll have to be sure to keep up on it, and whenever you see any new adults, they'll be pretty small when they're during treatment. So you'll just have to keep a close eye on it just to make sure that you get everything, and just do that for like a week or two, and then you should be good. Overall, the mealybugs are a really easy pest to get rid of, and every parasite you'll want to isolate your plants from whichever plant that is infected from the collection, just to prevent spreading it to any other plant, because then you'll have a full infestation, and while one plant isn't a problem, multiple plants can be a problem and can quickly become overwhelming. So just keep a close eye on your plants, especially any new plant that you add to your collection. Next, I'll be discussing spider mites. Spider mites, well, like their name implies, they look like spiders. They have 8 legs, although you can only see that under a microscope. And they're mites, meaning that they feed on the plant's sap. And they also produce the spider web. Well, it appears to be a spider web on the underside of their leaves. And you'll see tiny black specks on the underside of the leaves that are on the webs. They can sometimes be really hard to see. I personally haven't had spider mites before, but I have researched on how to get rid of them and how to find them and stuff like that. So spider mites are extremely tiny, so like I said, you're not going to be able to see them very well. They do have 8 legs, but you can only see that under a magnifying glass, and otherwise they'd probably just look like a tiny grain of black dust. So to treat them, you're first going to want to rinse off the plant as much as possible. This will knock the spider mites and their webs down, which will make it harder for them to resist treatment. You can use neem oil or an insecticidal spray of some sort to get rid of them, although I just recommended neem oil since it's non-toxic, unlike insecticides, so I just preferred neem oil. Although with any chemical like neem oil, isopropyl alcohol, insecticidal spray, you'll want to do a patch test on one of the leaves of your plant, and then wait 24 to 42 hours, and then check up on the leaf again in the same spot, just to make sure that the plant doesn't have any adverse effects from it, since they can be quite harsh. Keep a lookout for like browning or any burns or discoloration, because if there is any, then you're probably going to want to try a different method, since you don't want to accidentally kill your plant by burning it or something. You can also use a mix of dish soap, Dawn dish soap, and water, about 2 tablespoons to a gallon. And pretty much what this will do is spider mites are soft-bodied insects, and so when you spray the mix onto them, they will be unable to breathe and suffocate and die. So yeah, that's another less harsh option than like neem oil or insecticidal spray. Spider mites also like a dry climate, so changing up your plant's watering schedule, like making their soil more moist, will definitely help in the process of getting rid of them. And like I said, with the mealybugs and like most other pests, you'll want to repeat treatment for like once or twice a week for several weeks, just to make you cure the infestation, since some of the adults laid eggs or something, and they're still growing up and pupating, so it might be harder to kill them when they're in that stage of their life cycle. The pupas are the biggest problem because they will feed on decaying matter and root hairs, and root hairs are pretty much the part of the root that absorb the nutrients, and by eating the root hairs, it'll effectively kill any cuttings or seedlings, and it just could damage the root system of adult plants. You'll want to keep a lookout for them, especially if you have moist soil, because the eggs will hatch in moist soil. You can distinguish a fungus gnat from any other type of bug because their larvae will have a black head and a small worm-like body. It's less than 1 inch long, so it's really hard to see them. And the adults will have clear wings, and they'll have long spindly legs and long antennae. They have an erratic flight pattern, so it can be hard to catch them. They also aren't very strong flyers, so they will mostly hang out on the bottom or in the soil of your plant. So if you shake up your plant, then you might see some flying up, and that's when you'll find out you'll have a problem. Fungus gnats, it takes a lot of them to kill your plant. It's still a good idea to catch them early on. So the main thing you'll want to do is kill the adults so they can't reproduce. And to do that, you can get a sticky yellow card trap. It's about this big, yellow in color, because that color specifically attracts fungus gnats. And pretty much if you just put that over the pot or by the plant itself, the fungus gnats will be attracted to it, land on it, and die. Or you can use something called a mosquito dunk. You can soak it in water overnight and then use that water itself to water your plants. And by doing that, the fungus gnats larvae will die because the mosquito dunkers have a beneficial bacteria in them, which will cause the death of the pupae and larvae. And like the name implies, it'll also work with mosquitoes. And this bacteria is completely harmless to animals and humans as far as I know. So if your cat accidentally drinks it, they'll probably be fine. Although I'd still keep it away from animals just to be safe. One of the least noticeable insects that attack plants, they are called scale insects. And pretty much they feed on the sap of plants like most pests, like I said. They can be really hard to spot since they'll mostly hang out along the like the base of the plant or the stem, or maybe underside the leaves, anywhere where there's access to the sap. And these insects, they're stationary in their adult lives. Their pupa can spread to other plants fairly easily, so you'll want to isolate your plants. The adults can come in a range of color, brown, tan, or white. It really depends on the species. And to get rid of them, if there's only a couple, then you probably don't need to worry about it as much. Just keep an eye on your plant closely and scrape off any adults you find with your nail. You might need to use a moderate amount of pressure, but they should come off pretty easily. But if you have a full-blown infestation, which most plant owners find their plant with scale on them, and it's already become a full-blown infestation because this species of insect are really not very noticeable. When they feed, they leave a sticky residue behind, opposed to a powdery residue that's left by mealybug. So if you have powdery mildew of some sort on your plant, then you might want to check for mealybugs. The plants infected by scale, though their new growth will generally be stunted and disfigured, and they might have pock marks from where the scale have fed. So you also want to keep an eye on their foliage. Any damaged leaves you'll want to remove. Any damaged leaves beyond repair you'll want to remove. So just keep an eye on new foliage and remove anything that is sickly or weak. The plant will put energy on focus on making those leaves better, but you're gonna want to clip off that leaf to promote new healthy growth, and help the plant recover faster from the infestation. Rubbing alcohol dipped Q-tips dipped in rubbing alcohol can be a effective treatment for small infestations, and you just want to dab the Q-tip directly onto the plant and just make sure the scale comes off when you rub it with the Q-tip. If not, like I said, you'll have to pry it off with your fingernail, but it shouldn't be too difficult. If it's a full-blown infestation, then you might want to use a insecticide of some sort, or you can use 1 teaspoon of Dawn dish soap and 1 liter of water, and you'll just want to spray that. Make a new batch every time since the old one will go bad, and do that every 2 to 3 days for a couple weeks and the problem should resolve itself. If you keep having reoccurring infestations, then you'll want to move some of the soil. You'll want to move some of the soil away from the base of the plant, and that's because scale can sometimes hide below the root line. And if you'll do that, you'll just want to use the Q-tip method, and be sure to do a thorough job because anything that you miss will reproduce and cause the problem again. Aphids are another pretty common pest. You can treat them just like mealybugs, a Q-tip dipped in rubbing alcohol, and they'll mostly hang out at new growth, so you want to keep a close eye on that, and like mealybugs, clip off any damaged foliage that is adversely affecting the plant. The plant's infected by scale, though their new growth will generally be stunted and disfigured, and they might have pock marks from where the scale have fed. So you also want to keep an eye on their foliage. Any damaged leaves you'll want to remove. Any damaged leaves beyond repair you'll want to remove. So just keep an eye on new foliage and remove anything that is sickly or weak, as the plant will put energy on focus on making those leaves better, but you're gonna want to clip off that leaf to promote new healthy growth, and help the plant recover faster from the infestation. Q-tips dipped in rubbing alcohol can be a effective treatment for small infestations, and you just want to dab the Q-tip directly onto the plant and just make sure the scale comes off when you rub it with the Q-tip. If not, like I said, you'll have to pry it off with your fingernail, but it shouldn't be too difficult. If it's a full-blown infestation, then you might want to use a insecticide of some sort, or you can use 1 teaspoon of Dawn dish soap and 1 liter of water, and you'll just want to spray that. Make a new batch every time since the old one will go bad, and do that every 2 to 3 days for a couple weeks and the problem should resolve itself. If you keep having reoccurring infestations, then you'll want to move some of the soil. You'll want to move some of the soil away from the base of the plant, and that's because scale can sometimes hide below the root line. And if you'll do that, you'll just want to use the Q-tip method, and be sure to do a thorough job because anything that you miss will reproduce and cause the problem again. Aphids are another pretty common. They'll mostly hang out at new growth, so you want to keep a close eye on that, and like mealybugs, clip off any damaged foliage that is adversely affecting the plant. If you don't have a delicate plant with like fragile leaves, then you can use a shower head to rinse off the plant, and the aphid will just wash right off. They're pretty easy to remove, especially if you have a full-blown infestation. Like most pests, you can also use neem oil or some sort of insecticidal spray or insecticidal soap. If you still can't get rid of the problem, if more than 50% of the plant is damaged, you're just gonna want to pitch it. That goes for any sort of pest, because you're probably not gonna be able to save it. So thrips are tiny white bugs. They're generally really hard to see, and they like to hang out at the underside of leaves, and they pretty much just have white wings. Their heads might be yellow in color, and they're pretty hard to see. They're less than 1 inch long, and so pretty much to get rid of these, so thrips, they're pretty challenging to spot and pretty difficult to kill because of because you're not able to see them very well. So pretty much just like every other pest out there, you'll want to use neem oil or an insecticidal spray. I recommend those the most, although I haven't dealt with the problem myself, so just take what I say, especially with most of these pests. The only ones I've ever dealt with are mealybugs. So just take what I say with a grain of salt, and if you feel like you are lacking in knowledge even after this video, then I highly recommend you do your own research. And that goes for any topic in general. You can treat them with neem oil or an insecticidal spray, and you'll pretty much just want to spray the neem oil onto the leaves. Be sure to get the underside of the leaves because they like to hang out there. And just leave that there for 5 to 10 minutes, and then very carefully wipe it off, especially if your plant has fragile leaves, since you don't want it to have accidentally destroy or crush any of the leaves. Spraying off the plant in the shower with a hose or something can also help, but a combination of those treatments are, I believe, the best options. In my opinion, you should try to use anything other than an insecticidal spray or soap, since they are toxic and you wouldn't want your pet to accidentally ingest that and then have to take them to the emergency vet. So in my opinion, insecticidal sprays and soaps and other things like that, those are a last-ditch effort. And if you can't cure an infestation because it's just gotten out of hand, then if any more than 50% of your plant is damaged, then you're just going to want to get rid of it because you're probably not going to be able to save it. So yeah, that was pretty much how to deal with pests in a nutshell. I hope you guys learned something from this video.